Tracy, what's up?
I'm back.
There
Can
we
you hear me?
go. All right. Yeah. So now I know. So I was just telling everybody that
Well, I
I
heard
did an
you.
update. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you, man. Can you hear me well?
Yeah. Yeah, I got a messed up visual here, but
Looks pretty good to me. Background looks good.
well, if I were more important, we could do that. But
It's great to see you, buddy. I appreciate you taking the time, man.
absolutely.
So I'll kind of just lay it out here as we get going. I appreciate the patience everybody's on. So there will be people jumping on and off as we go, Tracy. And we're just going to talk. And at the end, whoever's on that wants to ask questions, we'll throw it in the chat. So anyone who's on here, feel free to throw stuff in the chat for questions. Anytime it comes up, just put them in and we'll get to those at the end. But I just really, appreciate the time, Tracy. I know that you're really busy, and obviously we stay in touch pretty closely and all that. But I just appreciate you taking the time, man. I know that you have a lot going on, and we've been trying to work this in. So let's dive in, though, man. Like this is going to be an interesting topic, right? Specialization versus the multi-sport athlete. You know how it works, the challenges with everything, and all that. So we'll get into that. But I mean, we've known each other for a long time. You've been very successful every stop that you've been at. I'd love you to kind of start with that, like as we kind of start this entire podcast. Like let's talk about your background. There's a lot of people that'll be listening that will know your background, but there are some people that won't know as much about it. I'd love you to kind of take me through kind of your coaching journey and how you got to this point.
Well, I think the most important part of the background is I'm probably like a lot of other people on this call. I'm a parent, and I'm a parent of three former Division I athletes, two on the football side and one on the baseball side. So well, first of all, Justin, thank you for having me on because I love talking about this stuff. I am very passionate about it because I've sat on both sides of it, and I know that it can be complex. I know and we've talked a little bit, but I know all the things that are out there being said in the industry. And, and I always say sometimes you shouldn't be drinking that Kool-Aid. And I love the topic tonight because this is one of my favorite subjects. I'm sitting here. I probably should have reversed my visual tonight because I have another visual on my other wall over here, and it's all of my sons playing athletics because it's very relevant, I think, to this conversation. And but that's that. First and foremost, I'm a parent, and anytime I have a chance to talk to people, coaches, parents, I jump on it because it's an ever-changing environment out there. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and it still changes. So I like to pass that on. But my career, I started out, interestingly enough, I was actually at a head coaches meeting today. I was sitting next to Dusty May. Michigan's got a pretty good basketball team right now. But interestingly enough, my first coaching job was in college basketball. You probably didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so switched over. I played collegiately, played a little bit in the minor leagues with the Cubs. Started coaching right away, basketball, when I was going back to finish my master's. Loved it. Started a baseball program at the lowest level you could probably ever beyond high school. It was a branch campus of Miami University of Middletown. And I bring that up because I think that'll probably weave back in here at some point in the conversation. It wasn't even junior college. It wasn't whatever, but I loved it. And I tell people I got as much excitement and joy out of those as Michigan and ASU and whatever, because it's competition. It was competing on the field of baseball. But I was fortunate enough then to move on to my alma mater, coach there as an assistant, went to Indiana as an assistant, got the head job at Miami at age 30, and didn't know what I was doing, at that time. Coached there for 9 years, took the job at Indiana University, and, everyone said, don't go there, you can't win there. And, of course, we had a pretty good run there. Coached there for 9 years, went to Arizona State for 7, was out a year, and then, going into our 4th year here at Michigan. So, been doing it a long time.
Great journey, man. What was I've talked to you a little bit about this personally, but what was that year off like for you when all you've done your entire career as coach?
Well, I don't want it to be, it's not a negative, but I mean, the ASU situation, because, when I talk to people about choosing school, I talk about people and being in an environment, it wore me down. And so I didn't realize the toll that it was taking on me physically. as well as mentally. And, people didn't probably know it if they ran into me, but
Yeah.
it was interesting when the finality of that situation being out. I jumped in, interestingly enough, as you and I've talked, into another running a company. The one thing I did realize is the real world doesn't operate at the pace of college athletics, because I've never had a weekend, in my life. And it's funny, people wouldn't call you back or call you on weekends. I was, wait a minute, I've never had a weekend in my life. Like, what are we talking about here? But it really gave me a lot of time to think about, probably even a little bit about this. Like I've done a lot, and I didn't know that I wanted to coach again. I love the entrepreneur thing. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I felt like I could coach again, but it would have to be the right spot. And so to be in that position in life, if any of us, it's you're lucky, because you don't have to do it. You love it. But then, jumping in and back and coaching, and feel like I've got a lot to offer. But it was a really good life reset for me. We have a mental coach, Scott Pelton, who works with our kids. And we talk about that all the time, taking situations and hitting the reset button. And there's always something to learn out of that. So good little pause, but
I get it, man. I get it. I know, you and I, I think we're very similar in a lot of ways, with just sort of the creativity, the way that you think, the way you've coached, the way you've gone about your business. I've always been, we're friends, but I've really appreciated like your creativity and your willingness to just be different, and I was thinking about it actually yesterday, Tracy, when we were texting, and I didn't share this when we were texting, but I was even thinking about, we used to share like what you'd get at Dairy Queen or whatever, like as a head coach at a Division I. It's just like you were always you're way more vulnerable than a lot of coaches would put themselves out there for, and like, I think that's unique, because you can take extra shots because of that. And then also it can be very endearing though. And people can really, take that, because everybody's got an opinion on everything. Right. So you were always willing to put yourself out there. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Like just your personality, why you're willing to do that? Like, just take me through that. And what is it, just part of your, like, just comfort in your own skin, where you're just don't care? I mean, I'd love to hear kind of that back up a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty relevant today. I was talking to Eric Backich down at Clemson, and we're on social media a little bit now and doing some stuff, and you're right about the vulnerability. But there's some strategy a little bit in that, but more importantly, yeah, I don't care. I mean, I'd say it probably goes, I grew up in a tiny town. I grew up in Kentland, Indiana, a town of 1,800 people. My father was the barber there for 40 years. He drove the school bus. My mom was Kentland's known for seed corn. So it was like the seed corn, largest family-owned seed corn company in the world, if you're checking. But my mom worked for the seed corn company. But just the fabric of being a small town guy, I went to a high school of 76 people, or 76 in my class. So I wasn't real worldly, and I loved being grounded like that. I think the first introduction to kind of like, whoa, what is this? Is I remember jogging my freshman year in the campus of Miami, and I waved to somebody, just because in my town, everybody knew everybody you waved. He didn't wave back. And I was like, wait, what's this? And so I've always just tried to be that same person from Kentland, Indiana. And, and I think like all of us, and back to even the ASU thing, like at Indiana, we started, a show on social media, and this was before TikTok and Instagram, called Skip Scoop, and you could dig it up out there. And there's some quality stuff out there with Kyle Schwarber, and if the mainstream media had that stuff, they'd be all over it. But anyway, we were doing that, and what it did is it showed that, hey, there's a human element to this, and so now fast forward, and very successful. It was fun. We were doing it because it was fun. It was like, what's the best way to show somebody what your program's like? Why don't you just open it up? And you're right. I mean, people would make fun of it, or why are you doing that, or whatever. And I'm like, why wouldn't I? I mean, I see it so the other way. I'm like, why wouldn't you do it? So I go to Arizona State, and this is where it's just an interesting context for me. I go there, and I'm like, all right, we're going to do Skip Scoop here. That's who I am. And I remember we had signed this, we got a commitment out at that time. You could do the early recruiting. We'd gotten a commitment on the top left-handed pitcher from the state of California. We really didn't even work on it. He just said, I want to come. I want to play for Arizona State. I want to play for you. And I remember saying to the young man, I said, hey, I love it that you're coming, but you haven't even kissed your first girl yet. Like, what are you talking about here? Like, why did you choose to come and commit to Arizona State as a freshman? And he's like, my dad sat down and we watched all those skip scoops with you in Indiana. We said, I want to play for that guy. And, so again, so I take the whole concept to Arizona State. Well, they shut it down. And it was of this mindset of basically like, hey, just coach baseball.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is coaching baseball. Like, this is all part of, and I still hear that, honestly, not from my administration. They get it, but you said you take shots. Dude, I know, I know what guys are saying and whatever. And you reference the Dairy Queen thing or what, on the, yeah, I mean, and I get a little feisty sometimes on Twitter, but I backed off a little bit on that. But I had my administration shut it down. And I did it because my boss is telling me to do that. But what at a larger scale is like, that's not me, like you guys knew who I was when you hired me. And now you're asking me to be somebody that I'm not. And I just remember it really it bothered me a little bit. And maybe that was the cycle of back to people. Like I just didn't fit in that thing that they were trying to make me fit.
Yep.
And back to when you said when I was out, the year that I was out, and this is interesting how it all weaves together. I said, if I coach again, I can tell you one thing. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be me. Because at night, we all have to go to bed and be comfortable with who we are, the decisions we make. And, and that wore me out there because I stopped being me. And I just swore that I would never do that again. And even in this job. So, yeah, if you think I'm going to be vulnerable, I think we're getting ready to, I said I've never danced publicly, but I think we're going to do a TikTok dance with some of my players just to have some fun with it. But I just go back to that. It's like, okay, you can take a shot at that or whatever, but you tell me why getting your brand in front of millions of people across the country, you're giving back to a profession you love, you're bonding and having relationships with your kids and helping them on the NIL front. I'm like, why aren't more people not doing it?
Yep.
But again, that I do it because it's effortless for me. It's who I am. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. And negatively, we're only gonna satisfy 51% of the people out there.
Yeah, exactly, man.
So.
Well, and the thing is that's interesting about the whole thing too, is just how the landscape works. I mean, you were kind of ahead of your time, obviously, with Skip Scoop, right? Like, because now that's like you almost have to brand in some way as a program, in some capacity. You have to do something. Otherwise, you're behind probably, right? And the brand isn't out there as much. But the other thing with that too, Tracy, is like the thing that I appreciate about coaches putting stuff out that's really who they are, because I know you. So if I see something, like I know there's not any sort of fake and stuff. Like I know, I just appreciate it because people can just know who you are. You don't have to like try to figure out, is there some angle? Is there something going on? Some of the instructional stuff you do, that's just pure, like, I view that and I see it as like, this is someone who cares about teaching fundamentals, which is a major problem. If you look at youth in high school sports right now, some of the fundamentals of how the game works and what you're trying to do, like, it's great. It's coaching.
What's the makeup of our audience tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a wide variety. So you're going to have players. Well, tonight it's going to be mainly parents, but you're going to have parents, players, coaches. It's a wide variety, but all baseball focused, obviously.
So, well, the reason I asked that, I thought that's what it was, is parents that are going through this process right now. Yeah. I mean, I always say that people do unbelievable vetting on, if I'm going to buy a house, I mean, I pay big money to get inspections. I do all these things or whatever. If I'm going to do an investment in a stock, or I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to do what, it just amazes me how little vetting parents do sometimes when they're actually their most important commodity, their child. They're going to send them off to play for somebody. Yeah. They better get to know them. And my thing is like, yeah, I do that. I mean, for a reason. I want people to see who I am. And if Out of 100 people, 49 of them get on there and go, I don't like that guy. That guy's an idiot. Okay, great. Well, then you learn something that you don't want to fit there. But if 51 say, I want to go play. So I don't see a downside to it. I really don't. And as a parent, I would think you would want to find that. You should be seeking the truth and trying to find out, who is my kid going to play for? Who's he going to go play for? And any mechanism you can find that out, I would be utilizing that.
Yes, I'm with you, man. And we don't, we can move on from it, but I like all of the stuff that you do. I feel like going way back, I just knew who you were, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate people that are just comfortable in their own skin. And you have to kind of put yourself out there doing that. And I just appreciate that, because you don't have to. So I'm going to kind of shift now, because this is a really big topic. We have, a lot to talk about. I want to start with this. So as we kind of get into the specialization versus multi-sport athlete, man, there's just so many pieces to this, right, to break down. And, we were texting about it and talking about it, but I think as we kind of look at it, I just want to start with this. So like, why do you think so many players nowadays are starting to specialize compared to maybe 30 years ago? Let's just start with that. Why do you think we've seen such a major shift?
Well, I referenced earlier Kool-Aid, and I don't want to say, oh, I'm old school. No, I just think this has been a narrative, and I've fought extensively to dispel that myth. And maybe, I offend people that are on this call. And again, going back to I am who I am. So you got to take, I don't, now let me preface that by not one size fits all. So I get that. But in general, I just see that it's just been this narrative that's been fed. And I talk to a lot of parents. The parents are saying, well, that's what my high school coach is telling me. That's what the college coaches want. Well, I'm sitting here saying, well, I'm a college coach and I don't want that. Yeah. And I remember I had a really vivid, this was at Indiana, and I was standing there, and I was Tom Crean, the basketball coach at the time. We both had kids the same age, and we're watching our boys practice football. We ultimately ended up coaching them together. We went undefeated in the 6th grade league. I was the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. But we were sitting there, we were talking about this subject. I said, do you hear it a lot about specialization? That he goes, I want multi-sport athletes. I love multi-sport. What about you? I said, because they're always being told that we want. He goes, no. He goes, I encourage kids. And I said, well, isn't that funny that all these coaches, high school typically, are saying, oh, the college coaches want. I have yet to find, and I may be wrong, but I have yet to talk to one college coach or a colleague that says, yeah, man, I just want the guy that specializes. They don't. And the one biggest thing that I say, people will ask me all the time, hey, coach, what do your guys need to work on? Like, what do they need to do when they get to you? And they think that I'm going to say, well, they need to get their hands through better, or they need to drive off their backside. No, I said what they need to do is they need to learn how to compete, because they've been so specialized. They've been in a batting cage. They've been taking, I don't want to call them meaningless swings, but I have yet to find, and I've raised 3 of them, so I've yet to find a 16, 17-year-old who is so disciplined in his off season that he's going to go at it at the rate that he would go if he was in another sport. Mm-hmm. And I would rather have that guy standing on the foul line with no time on the clock. I use that example. With no time on the clock, he's got to hit a 1-and-1 to send it to overtime. Then go take 150 swings in a batting cage with no one standing around. There's real pressure there. And if you don't think that skill doesn't translate and is needed at the college level, you're crazy. So I'm very passionate about this one.
Yeah. And I knew that. That's why I wanted to have you discuss this with me. That as we kind of look at like competing, I think we can all agree, myself, you, other college coaches, I think we can all say that that's becoming a little bit lost in all of this, right? What you're saying, and the understanding of like at a showcase tournament or something like that. I mean, it's really not as much about winning the tournament, which is okay in some ways. You don't want a pitcher throwing 140 pitches and coming back on it. And like sometimes you can go the other way with too young, but in the pitches and what they're trying to do. But my point is it's a different environment. There's not a lot of times there's not the fire. It's not the competition of playing maybe a high school sport or something like that. But I think it's a really good point, man, because I think it's maybe the strongest argument, one of the strongest arguments for playing multiple sports. Here's where it gets tricky. So as we kind of move into this conversation, I deal with it all the time because I'm dealing with many of the best players in the country, the U.S. and Canada. And I think it's also really tough because they're a part of a system that makes it really challenging. So, for example, if we just use, I'll just use this example, Tracy, and I kind of want to get your opinion on it, but I don't want to use his name, but I work with a really high profile right-handed pitcher, but he's also an elite quarterback, right? And so he gets pressured, right, to do a lot in the summer because he's really a Division I level football player as well. But the high school and there's no issues with the coach or anything like that. But you run into these issues though, where it's like they're being pulled. So if you play multiple sports, you start getting pulled in a lot of directions with the off season, which should be your season, but it's the off season with the other sport. Can you just talk about that? Like, because I think a part of it is as adults in how we work high school sports now, I think we're more at fault in driving players.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, before you said at fault, I was going to say, whose fault is it?
Yeah.
It isn't the kid's fault.
Right.
That's what I go back to. We've created this system, and I don't think very smartly or very wisely, to get people to believe this is the way. And where I hear it all the time is the parent will say, my kid really wants to do it, but the coach is making him, or he's going to cut him, or he's going to penalize him, or he's going to sit him out the first. And that's the stuff that drives me absolutely crazy, because I'm like, wait a minute. I've had multi-sport athletes at college at a high level where the stakes are much higher. And I'm sitting here saying, I can work that out, like with the football coach. Yeah. We can figure out a system. Yeah, you gotta make some, adjustments to your schedule and do things differently. But that's where I'm like, yep. Who's really at fault here? Is it the kid, or is it sorry, but knucklehead high school coaches that can't figure out how to way to work with each other? Mm-hmm. And I would joke around. My sons went to Bloomington North High School, and I said, and their coaches were like that. They would battle and put pressure on and discourage and all that. I said, there's a better football team walking around the hallway right now that's not playing because you guys can't work out the summer ball situation. And so I get it. I mean, I get it, that the kids are forced into that. I'm not going to sit here and say it's right. That's why I speak on it any way that I can, because I'm saying we on the receiving end of that, we're not telling the coaches that's what we want. I mean, like I said, I've not talked to anybody that wants that at my level.
Yeah. It's interesting. So like if let me just give you a scenario, right? So you're recruiting a few different players, and two of the three are multi-sport athletes and the one is not. You've been asked this 1,000 times probably, but is it, how much of it plays into that? Like how much of that factors in where you look at it and you say, hey, like clearly there has to be an evaluation on these guys that puts them in a certain category, right? We're not disagreeing with that or saying that doesn't matter.
But some of that could work to your advantage to me. I mean, also by position, if you got a pitcher, for example, and he is a and he's got low mileage on his arm, I mean, that's a positive.
Yeah.
Or you're looking at a guy that's been a multi-sport athlete and he moves really well, because that's the other thing people don't talk about is like movement and how guys move and how important that is. Because when guys get in, like locked into a cage and stuff, they don't have the fluidity, and not all of them. But I mean, that guy's, he's a pretty good baseball player. And he's been playing 3 sports. You know what? I bet when he gets to our level and has to focus on baseball, he's going to be really, really good. I had a player at Indiana. His name was Micah Johnson, and Micah had some of the best feet at second base in the infield I've ever had. Well, now he wasn't another sport, but you know what Micah was? He was a dancer. His parents had him in dance all the way growing up. So those skills translated. He ended up playing big leagues with the Dodgers. Like, it's just a false. I mean, I'll go to my deathbed. It's a false narrative that you have to do that to be successful at college. I'm so far the other way on that.
Okay, so let me give you this one. So, I mean, if you're dealing with real life scenarios, like I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I think I actually went through it myself personally with football and baseball. So I played quarterback, and I was the shortstop, pitcher. You know, like it's that same scenario you hear 1,000 times too, right? But so I've been through it to where, you know, the push is to get you to start practicing in August, and you're not even done with your baseball season, right? So you're trying to combine all this stuff. So let me ask you this though. So like one of the biggest things I hear is, okay, I want to play this sport. Let's just say it's a fall or winter sport, but with my academics and the sport that I'm playing, I really can't do a whole lot on the baseball side, and I don't want to do that. I want to be hitting. I want to be doing something. I want to be throwing. I want to be in a throwing program. When it comes, you know, February and I need to be ready to go and full go, like I need to be ready to go. Like I can't manage all of that. Just give me your take on that. Like when a player takes you through that scenario, what are your thoughts on that? Because I understand it. Like there's only so much time in the day. So can you take me through that, and what would you say to them? What advice would you give to a player that
I would
says,
say, folks, at the time, because I go back to like playing. Let's just say you want to be a D1 baseball guy, it all isn't about throwing, hitting. It's also this. It's also the competitive piece of performing under pressure, and it's all of that. And that's where I'm like, that being in a football setting or a swimming or whatever, you're still training to be ready for the spring. It's just a different skill set. And then there are soccer and whatever, footwork, like you could apply those things. But if a young person still finds they want to do that, then they're going to have to find time to, if that's what makes them happy, do those things. I cringe because we get this in real life scenario all the time. I'll get a kid, he'll commit and he loves basketball, like, or whatever. I'm just saying that. And he'll be like, hey coach, I committed. Now I'm going to quit basketball. And I'm like, whoa. I said, do you like playing basketball? Yeah, I love it. And I'm like, well, then play basketball. Like, we want you to play basketball. We want you to keep doing that. And I will say too, back to the mindset thing, and I say it sometimes facetiously, but I'm like, you could take my team right now, line them all up on a foul line, and you go down and introduce yourself, take 1 minute with each guy, and I bet you could tell me at the end of that line who played football and who didn't.
You're probably not wrong on that one.
Well, so I just think we get so baseball, you got to do this in the cage, you got to do this in the run, yes, you have to do that, but there's other skills that go through it. And the irony of that, in my opinion, you've worked at the major league level, there are a lot of people physically that can play at the major league level as you go through the minor leagues. I mean, guys that I played with, I played with a lot of guys, but that's not the separator. The separator becomes all the stuff that we're talking about here, the competitiveness, the way they handle pressure, the way that they, get it done after they get knocked down. Well, you can learn that stuff in more than – that's where I'm like, you don't learn that in a batting cage in the off season. You don't learn that hitting off of a tee. You don't learn that throwing a ball against a wall.
Yep.
And we don't talk about that. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. I'm going to share a little story on that because I think you're hitting on it. And I have some other thoughts on this too. But, somebody we took in the first round when I was with the Brewers was Sal Frelick, who's now obviously in the big leagues and has been a major contributor. Early on in that process, the coaching staff at BC, who I know really well, it kept going back character-wise and makeup-wise. It kept going back to like, this guy is such an athlete. Everything he does is a competition. You go back to high school, he played multiple sports. He was great at everything he did. He loved everything he did that he competed in. And fast forward though, Trace, this is really interesting. It was a guy that I trumpeted as much as possible. Wasn't ultimately my decision, but my boss made the decision. And so I was ecstatic, and it was exciting and all that. You're excited about that. Fast forward to the spring training. I'm talking to a coach, one of our coaches on the side. He's like, man, Sal just makes everybody better. First spring training. He's like, he just makes everybody better. Like the way that he competes, the way he approaches everything he does, it just makes everybody better around him. And that was for me, that was where my conviction to the compete and how much that matters and how much that can change a franchise. Fast forward, he's up in the big leagues in a year, impacts the whole clubhouse, going to be an all-star.
You know, the guy in my world for that is pretty relevant. There's this guy that played for me named Kyle Schwarber.
Kyle Schwarber.
You know, and everybody asks me all the time. They're like, "Hey, how did Kyle Schwarber end up at Indiana?" Well, I'll tell you why. Because everybody thought he was going to be a college football player. Nobody recruited him in baseball because Kyle was a tremendous linebacker in football, and comes to Indiana, and then of course the rest is history. But it was the same thing. I mean, Kyle Schwarber's probably arguably one of the best players ever. I mean, he's getting there.
Yep.
But the thing that I tell people about it isn't the 400-some foot home run. It is, I was just talking. I ran into a major league reporter in the line at hardware store last night. We were talking about this. He's like, "You got any insight of where he's going?" But we were talking about it. I said, "You know the thing about Kyle?" I said, "Man, whoever gets him is going to be lucky because every locker room he's in, they just win. He makes just what you said. He makes the locker room better." And we don't talk about those things. And where I want to interject when you said something too, to me, one of the most important skills we don't talk about, but to me is aptitude. Being able to make a real-time adjustment and, you know, on a skill in real time, because things have to be done like that. And what a better environment to do that in all sports. Aptitude isn't unique to baseball.
Yeah.
It's you can do it across all sports. And if you have aptitude, back to you asked me the question on the young man that's pressured to do it in this and he wants to play. If you got aptitude, man, you could take that break in the fall and enjoy your sport. You're going to go pick up your other thing in the spring and be just fine.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think there's a lot to be said for the aptitude part of it. I want to pause for a second on this though, because like when we look at this whole topic, I mean, you just talked about like the football players, right? If I go down the line, shake their hand. And so this is my one counter argument to the multi-sport. It makes the most sense when the other sports benefit your main sport. So let's just say a kid's having trouble gaining weight, right? They're 6'3", 145 pounds. Going and running cross country is a tough argument for me because it's like, man, it's going to be really tough to be physical enough to play at the highest level if you're burning 5,000 calories a day running cross country.
Well, but my only counter argument to that, because I was the guy that ran cross country, but my only counter, because I say this to people all the time, they'll say, "Hey, what do you want me to do? You know, what do you want us to do when, you know, prior to?" I said, "You know what? Go enjoy your high school because when you get to us, we're going to take over."
Yeah.
Like, so back to the guy that's losing the weight or whatever. I mean, if you see a player and you're pretty good at it and you're like, well, you know what, when we put the 20 pounds on him that we're going to put on him when he gets to us, he's going to be pretty good. So I look at it like, still, if a guy wants to do that and enjoys that, whose fault is it that we can't see through?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So that guy drops 10 pounds running up and down the basketball floor or running in cross country or whatever. He's going to put that back on, or shame on us if we can't put the weight back on it. You know?
Well, I think, Tracy, we're hitting on a different topic, but that's the ability for evaluators to see ahead and take the whole picture. Because I see a little bit on my end where, you know, that becomes a question mark then, where it's like, I think we're going to hold. I'd like to see a little bit more weight there, right? I mean, so it's the whole system that we're kind of in of like, okay, well, you know, he wants to do that, but now that weight is an issue, and then now that's going to hold him up possibly in the process. So like they're taking into account all these things, but let's just kind of move past that, because I'm not pro specialization. I just want to make that clear. I'm definitely not that. Where I do stand, and I'll get to another question here, but where I do stand is, if you don't love a sport, if you're just doing it, that to me is a lot different. Like, if I would want you to love playing whatever you're playing. So if it's like, yeah, I don't really like wrestling, and then I have to cut 10 pounds and I don't love it, I don't want to be there. That's not what we're talking about here. This is like, no, there's another sport or two that you love to play when you're in season. You love to play hockey. You get on the ice and you're great at it and you love it. Like, that's what we're talking about here. If you're eliminating sports out, that you don't really like and you don't really love, and you've maybe just done it your whole life, but you don't love it, that's not at all what we're talking about here.
Well,
you want to talk a little bit about that, Tracy?
Well, that's why I said at the beginning of this conversation, I left myself a little bit of an out because I said not one size fits all. That's what I was talking about. I've had guys in my career, just what you said, like they're not going to go play the sport just to play the sport. Like they truly don't like basketball. They don't like football. They don't like whatever. So they're going to train year round. We know what it works for them. But when you've got the athlete that loves playing something, I'm telling you, let them play.
Yeah.
And there's value in that beyond the training of the sport specific training, like skills that are really transferable when you get to the college and professional level.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. So let me ask you this. If you had some magic wand and you could let's just take high school baseball, high school sports, what would you like to see more of? What would you like to see, at the high school level, how that's handled with multi-sport athletes?
Well, I think you said like the system in which they do tournaments in the fall, things or whatever, it's created a little bit of that not selfish, the combative, the territorial mindset of coaches. If we're using football and baseball, which is a common one, the schedules just don't work. So, keep the traditional stuff. And I hate going, well, back in the day, we didn't have all these things in the fall. You played you played football in the fall, or you ran cross country, you did something. You didn't have the pressure or the feeling that you're letting your team or summer coaches down by not playing in the fall, because we hear that a lot. And, and some coaches, I've heard, just if the guy doesn't join him in the fall, then they punish him in the summer. So I would probably really take a hard look at that schedule and say, do we really need to do this? Which is a whole nother subject, because it's a business and money. And, and I'm not begrudging somebody for doing that, but it's like, we've just created this system, and I try at every opportunity I can is to say to people that you don't need to drink the Kool-Aid. But the one caveat is all the stuff we're talking about, the aptitude of having, and ultimately, if you want to be recruited, you've got to be good. You've got to be good. You've got to perform when people are there to see you. But to think that you've got to do this thing at that age, whatever, year round to be good, I fundamentally disagree with.
I do too. I do too, man. And where it gets really bad for me is when we see 65 games on a summer schedule for a 10U team. I mean, it's getting out of control.
Get me started on that.
I mean, this is, here's the thing. We'll get on this. I'll give myself a little tangent here, but it's our fault as adults for creating this system where we think kids have to play 55 to 65 games in a summer to develop as a player in baseball at 10 years old. That is completely our fault. We've gone completely off the rails as humans to think that is a very, very appropriate thing to do. I've said this many times. I was at a tournament. This was the first year. My daughter played softball. My oldest is 8. So I have two daughters, 8 and 5. And it was her first year. One of the tournaments was 95 degrees and humid, and they had one team playing 4 games in a day at 8 years old. They were on the field, Tracy, for 8 hours. I mean, I refused, actually. So I left. I helped coach and all that. I refused it.
When my kids were at this age, I started a travel ball organization to basically cut back the number of games played, practice more, and get back to fundamentals, because my ultimate goal with my boys was, and the others on the team, was to give you skills and teach you fundamentals that are going to help you play beyond.
Yeah.
And, and back to your thing about, and I have numerous dads will walk up to me. It's typically dads. I don't want to let the moms off the hook, but it's typically dads will say, hey, my son was, their team was the number 1 ranked 9U, whatever. And I love doing it. I'm like, so, I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? Does that mean something?
It's so good, man. And look, I'm not opposed. I want to be careful on this. I'm not opposed to the club organizations and putting leagues together. That's not what I'm saying. It just is where do we stop? Are we trying to fit in a game a day now? Do we want them to play an MLB schedule here pretty soon at 10 years old? Where do we Where do we stop on this?
But then people that have been in it and been in it at a high level can sit there and rattle off, and I could sit here tonight and rattle off numerous. Some of the best players I've ever coached didn't pick up a baseball bat until they were 14 years old. They played hockey the entire time. I played with a guy, you made it, Fernando Ramsey was his name. He's a world-class sprinter in 1984. He was at New Mexico or New Mexico State. World-class, beat Carl Lewis at one point.
Wow.
Never touched never had been on a baseball field until he's 22 years old. Ended up making it to the big leagues. I mean, now that's
Amazing.
Certainly an outlier story because he could really run. I mean, this guy could run beautifully. But my point is, it's like our sport too. You develop physically at the different time. That's the beauty of what we can do. Go do all of these things to enhance that. I just, kids give up stuff, and that's the part that makes me sick. They give up stuff they really want to do, all because they're fed this false narrative.
Yeah, and parents are in a tough spot too. So, like, I know that, you know, when I say adults, we're at fault. What's hard is, as a parent, you're just now in the system. You're trying to get it right, and we have very few options that are aligning to what you and I are talking about. Which
that's why they need to listen to your podcast.
Well, I tell you what, I'm trying. You know, I wish I could change a lot more, but I just think we just have to get back to real, like, the basics of what we're trying to do. So let me also say this. So, you know, as we talk about specialization versus multi-sport athlete, here's one thing that's interesting too, Tracy, is there's a lot of organized settings for players now, right? There's a lot of, everything is organized. It's kind of like, here's the plan, here's the routine. I have no problem with hitting coaches, pitching coaches. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think they're extremely valuable in a lot of ways. What I'm saying is, when I was growing up, we would also just go to the park and figure some things out and play some games and do some things. And you start learning some things naturally that you just do, that nobody's really teaching you. You're just kind of going out there and doing things and making plays. And, you know, you kind of learn this like fearless sort of approach in that sort of sandlot sort of setting. And I want to ask you this, like, so it's something I've been kind of like talking a little bit more about, but like, it's different today. There's a lot of things that are set up. There's a lot of things that are organized. How can we get back? And when we talk about specialization versus multi-sport, it's kind of connected here, and I'll weave it back. But how can we get back to, you know, youth sports, seeing more of that, Tracy, where we're, as parents, we're pushing, like, hey, go to the park and just play with some friends. We don't need to like do this over here.
I wish, but I mean, if you're asking, I don't know that we ever will.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we can. And I remember, it just takes me back, my first trip to the Dominican Republic. This was 15 some years ago. And I was going down for the first time because I wanted to learn the culture and the baseball and whatever. But I just remember the first day I'm there, I'm at this field, the community park. It's 9 a.m. Now I understand the educational system in the Dominican's way different.
Yep.
But it's 9 a.m. and there were these 9-year-olds out playing this game. And I'm sitting there watching, you know, just kind of, but then all of a sudden about the second or third inning, it hit me. It's like, wait a minute. There's no parents around here. Like, these guys are just out here because they're having fun playing the game. I don't know, for everything that we've talked, because of everything we talked about tonight, I don't know that, because the system is designed to get in I always say the petri dish. It's not about free play. And we're growing up in a, you know, here we are, we're doing all this virtually right now. We couldn't have done this back when we were. So I just think the world's different now. I don't know that it will ever be that way outside of people just saying, hey, you know, get your butt off the, you know, off the Call of Duty or whatever and get outside and play catch. I don't know that we can or will. I just, because our society is not in that mindset. And it's funny because I think about this a lot when I watch our guys. You know, I watch them play, and, you know, I'll see things and I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't have done that if, you know, it's usually a bad thing. I'm like, I couldn't have done that if I tried. And in my mind, I'm going, I know it's because, and the one that I always think about is like when pitchers pick the ball up and they can't throw like, you know, 20 feet, they throw 60, and then they just change everything because they can't have the feel to throw the ball at various distances. And that's because back to what you said, how did you always end up playing? You always played like burnout until the end, and you're short in the distance. You didn't know what you were doing at the time, but you were training your body to like let it out by throwing in various distances. And so we try to do that in our practices. Like I'll try to create some chaos and stuff, but buddy, I don't know if we can get it back to that. I wish we could, but I don't think we can.
It's a pipe dream, man. It's for me. Like I feel like if we can get back some of that. So I want to get back to this, and I want to wrap it back to this. But I think when we talk about the specialization versus multi-sport, essentially there's a lot of different pieces of this that we're trying to cover here in a 45 to 60-minute conversation. But I think when we look at it as a whole, it's kind of like, what route do you feel like is best for you and your family? I mean,
Right.
that really is what it comes down to, because here's what I want people to know though. If you're the caveat and you want to do it your way and you want to play 3 sports and you don't want to do anything in the winter to like prepare for the spring or do very little, like if that's what you think is best for you, go for it. If you're that good, it will work out. Can it take a little bit longer in the recruiting process? Yes, maybe. Like maybe there's some things that could happen there. Like if you're not, I mean, Tracy, we're talking about, if we're going to talk about this, man, there's camps in January, right? I mean, there's prospect camps. So like, this is the real thing. Like I'm on that side of it. So like, I do see where they say like, it's probably going to hold me up a little bit, but that's where you just have to be like, but what do I want to do? I get one shot at this in high school. I get one time through this. Like you and I know this, man, but like you might go on and play college ball, but like you're never going to play football again then probably. You're never going to play basketball or the other sports that you love to play. Like that's it. Like that's what you get to do. So you get a very narrow window and you can't look back on it and say like, I personally wish I didn't give up football. Like I personally wish that. Like I did it because at the time I felt like this is what I had to do. I had full support from my parents to do whatever I wanted. They supported me. Funny story. My dad finally my senior year offered me, which it sounds simple. My dad was not a pressure guy, but he thought I was going to regret it. So he said, I'll give you $500 to play football. And his point of that was not to pressure me, not to put anything on me, but it was just like, I really don't want you to regret this. That's how much that's worth to me. Right. Like, will you just do it? Like, but the point is like, I think as we kind of move to like the decision-making and stuff, you have to do what's best for you, but make sure you're not going to look back on it and regret it. So going back to you on this, so Tracy, as we kind of wrap up here, if anyone's got questions, throw them in the chat. There's a lot to talk about with the Q&As too. I'm sure there's going to be some really good Q&As, but as we kind of wrap up here, Tracy, there's so much to this to talk about, but as you kind of finalize your thoughts on this, the specialization versus multi-sport, if you just had to wrap that up in 60 seconds, what would you say to parents and players that are currently in the process making this decision?
Yeah, there's a caveat to all of it. If your kids, if they're good, they're going to get recruited. And I don't care when that happens, it's going to happen. And the other part is you can't force the process. And I think that's the thing when people dive into the specialization, they think, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to work. And that doesn't always work. So I would just say, and you said it, you hit the nail. I say it all the time. Like you can't go back and be a high school kid. I always say, just go enjoy high school. When you get to us, trust me, we're going to make this a job. Don't you worry about that. Like, so go enjoy high school because you can't get these years back.
Yeah.
And so I think you said it for me, because that's what I would say is like, you got the best feel of what's right for you, but the loud and clear message that I want to say, at least as a member of the industry that you're supposed to be being told that wants specialization, hogwash, borrowed a word from my grandmother. It's not true. Not for the majority of coaches that I talk to. And so I would just say, be the high school guy. And the other thing I would say is I'm looking at my one son and my youngest one across the thing on the ball. Make sure the actions match the words, because you said it. Like if you want to be a D1 this, or you want to be an athlete this, and you don't want to play another sport or whatever, well, that's not also the license to just go sit on the couch and do nothing. Mm-hmm. Like you've got to train and be good, but I'm saying the training can come in multiple forms. At the subject tonight of multiple sports. So follow your heart, Don't listen to these supposed experts on that, and maybe even throw me into that. Like, do what you want to do, because if your kid's good, it's going to get recruited. You can't force the process anyway.
So good, man. And I appreciate the insight, because I think as we look at it as a whole, it's just tough. Like, it's tough to understand what to do, and it's tough to know what's right and what's wrong. But I'm going to fall on this, and then we'll get to the questions. But this is where I'm going to fall. If you love to play a sport and you are in high school, play the sport. It's that simple. Like, yes, there are risks. I'm going to get to the question here, but like,
Me too.
if you love the sport, like, it should take a lot to pull you away from that, in my opinion. Like, so let's just start with that. Any sport, whatever that is, 2, 3 sports, whatever, you get one shot at it. That's where I land. Tracy, you actually brought up a point tonight that I maybe didn't connect in all these years. I mean, I've had this conversation probably 10,000 times, but the compete factor, man, is huge. I'm going to add on to that. Many times in different sports, you may have a different role, right? Baseball, you may be the best player, the leader, all of that. You might go to basketball and be like the 5th best guy on the team, and kind of what I would say is like an impact guy, but also a guy that's not necessarily going to score the 25 a game. And so you kind of learn the different roles too sometimes. You're not always the best in every sport. And I love that, because now you have a really good understanding as a teammate of what that guy further down the bench that's coming off the bench, what his mindset needs to be and what he might feel like. And your attention to that guy might be a little bit different. So that's another piece to this, man. But the compete is huge. So I'm going to get to the questions. Really good stuff here tonight, Tracy. I appreciate it, man. You and I could always talk for hours. But so Mark's question here, what about injury risk? So for a kid that loves baseball, the idea of playing other sports he likes is outweighed by the fear of blowing an ACL or an ankle or missing the year competition that he truly cares about. That is an awesome question, and it's a great point. What are your thoughts on that, Tracy?
I mean, sports are it's a risk. Injuries are a risk of sport. I mean, I don't know. I've never been in that headspace of, even with my guys now, like, we'll do a lot of our team. We'll do competition things at the end of fall, kind of between leading up to winter, that are pretty physical, and we do them for a reason, because back to the competition piece, like, that is a skill that they need to be. So the risk, and I know there's a chance that the guy could blow an ankle, he could do something, he could whatever. I'm smart about the time. Maybe I'm not smart, but I mean, I always try to factor in, like, okay, if a guy blows his leg out, or, does he have time to recover? But I just don't think you can, in the sport, in the realm of athletics, and maybe you can, and I welcome the disagreement, but I don't think you can sit and say, well, the what if. That's just, if you're an athlete and you enjoy something, you're going to go get it, because and injuries are going to happen. And that's just part of what we do. So that's a personal decision. You have to weigh it out. Okay, I'm just playing basketball or whatever or football because it's kind of fun or whatever. And maybe that's not a real passion. Well, then maybe that falls down on your continuum of, should he be playing or not, because if he's all in, or his prospects in baseball or whatever, versus the guy that's in between that really loves football. But I'm not the what if, the injury, because you get injured doing anything.
Yep.
But it's a really good question, because I get that one a lot. What about the injury? I'm like, well, I mean, guys get hurt in baseball too, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and I think adding to that, Mark, it's a great question, but in kind of helping answer that too, what I would say is, it depends on where you're at as a player. Here's where I fall a little different on that. If you're in high school and you're a draft prospect, now we're talking money potentially, and that's really where we get into maybe a little bit different conversation. So if we're just talking college, Tracy's just talking college right now. If you're a top 5-round pick, you maybe are in that $500K plus money draft conversation or something like that. There are different risks that you're now weighing, because now it's a business decision, right? So really good question though, Mark. Loaded question, but it's a good question, Tracy. I like how you answered that. So, all right. So like you said about possibly holding up recruiting, my son is 6'7", right, a pitcher who also plays varsity basketball. Basketball takes fall through winter. So with limited time the summer before his senior year and get in front of coaches, what should we focus on over this summer? Great question.
But when, I mean, I'm looking at this, basketball takes fall through winter.
Yep.
So they've got the spring and the summer to make impressions, you know,
Yep.
and I go back to like, it's a guy can, you know, you send video out. It goes back to the same cabin. I always say there's a qualifier. You got to be good. So if your 6'7" right-handed pitching son is firing out videos to people and he hasn't been seen yet and he's on a bullpen or he's doing whatever and he's 92, 93, he's going to get the attention of colleges and they're going to make an effort to see him. And it only may take one time that they see him. Yep. So again, it's the continuum is the love of him playing basketball. Where does that fall on that thing for you? But if he's good and he's 6'7", you don't need an entire year for people to recognize his talent and go get him. You could do it in the spring, the high school season. You could do it in a shortened summer season if he's good.
Yes, agreed with that. So here's one thing I'll add. So if anyone has any more questions, throw them in the chat as we kind of wrap up here. This is your time. I'm gonna add to this the answer here. You better have a really good plan though. Like if you're putting yourself in a position where you do play multiple sports, in my opinion, you have to have a really good plan for those months then. So how is he building up? What's his timeline there? What does the spring season look like? What are you doing in the summer? Where are you going in the summer, right? Like there has to be a plan. I certainly wouldn't advise or recommend, playing multiple sports and then just seeing what happens. Like that doesn't usually work either. It's the nature of the beast right now of recruiting is so competitive that you have to kind of understand what your plan is and what you're doing. But to go back to what you were saying, Tracy, like obviously if you have spring and summer, there's plenty of time within that there's, that coaches can see you. So really good question though. Okay, Steven, good question here, Steve. Many college programs conducting their prospect camps in the fall outside of their collegiate seasons. How should multi-sport athletes handle those opportunities during their fall sport when they may not be the sharpest with their baseball skill set due to lack of practice? Great question. Tracy, go ahead.
Well, I go back to like the coaching staff, and this may shock you, Stephen, but it's like we'll have guys who do that. They'll come to a fall prospect camp, and on Friday night they're running for 176 yards and getting banged up and whatever. But here, let me tell you how the conversation goes then on Monday. And I'm going to qualify it again. Like he does things well, and he may not be using your words as sharp as, but you can see, hey man, this guy moves well. But how the conversation goes on Monday? It goes, you know what? How about that son of a gun made an effort to get here Saturday after getting banged up on Friday night? That shows you something too. You know what I mean? So there is value in that. And that's the stuff that I think gets lost in all of this as well. Like just the simple fact that a guy in season shows up at your camp, it's already, and we ask guys, we do a little talk before camp and we'll say, hey, if there's any guys, multi-sport athletes, guys play football, let us know because we're going to factor that into the evaluation. And if you're a little banged up, you can't run or whatever. But I'm telling you, when you get somebody drives there, it's already a little check like, damn, I like that guy. Like he's committed. I mean, and there's value in that.
Yep. Yeah, there's definitely pieces to that. And I'll share this really quick. And if anyone has any final questions, throw them in the chat. I went to evaluate a kid one time. He was at wrestling practice. It was in the winter, so they had set something up in the gym for me with the bullpen, with a mound and a pen and stuff. So he comes up straight up from wrestling practice. He doesn't change or anything, right? He's completely soaking wet. If anyone knows what a wrestling practice is like, he's completely soaking wet. His shirt is soaking wet from his sweat. He has his glove and a ball, and his catcher's ready. He starts throwing. I'm like, hey, man, you all right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you need some water. He's breathing heavy, right? They had just done conditioning. He's throwing. Jumps on the bump. Absolutely electric. And I'm like, hey man, are you like feeling all right? You tired? Like how, just trying to like get it in. He's like, yeah, but I mean, I told you that I want to do this. And, they told me that you wanted to see me. And so that's what I'm doing. Like, it was so impressive, Tracy. Oh, off the charts. Cause that night was the velo down a little bit from normal. Absolutely. Was all that. The stuff was good, but I knew it would be better. But the fact that he walks up and did that pen, I was like sign me up for this guy.
But what we were talking about earlier about the social media and seeing what a coach is like or whatever, what you got right there is what may take a couple of years. You got a real look at who that dude is.
Yes.
I mean, and so boom, that's already a check mark. You know that kid's makeup in that scenario right there. And that's the stuff that people don't understand in these scenarios where this stuff plays out, is those things are being evaluated too, just as much as a guy can throw, how hard he can throw, how well he hits, how whatever. So, you know, there's no, it's all fluid, but that I love that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just, you kind of have, and you have probably, you know, so many of those stories as well, but when you see something like that, how they handle themselves and what they're doing. And Steve, going back to your question too, like, I mean, the player has to be prepared in some ways. Like, it can't be where they haven't hit for 2 months or something and you're going to go there and just give it your best shot. Like, there has to be some preparation. Like, it clearly, if they're in another sport, I want to like qualify that. Like, if you haven't thrown in 2 months, you can't go throw at Michigan's prospect camp and think that that's going to like somehow be a positive thing. I mean, obviously the arm's not in shape there. So you have to like calculate some of that stuff. But if all that's there and you're just not at your best, I think as Tracy was saying, like, coaches can see past some of that if you're in a different season. If you're specializing, Tracy, tell me if I'm wrong on this. If you're not in any other sport and you come there, that's what you think they are, correct?
Well, I was going to say that you're 100% right. I mean, if you got two guys that one's performing a little bit less, but you're like, you know what? You factor that in. I 100%. And that's why this whole narrative, it just blows my mind. It doesn't even make sense logically. And,
we're going to get there someday, Tracy.
Maybe not in my lifetime. But
hang with me, man. So I appreciate you coming on, though. It's been awesome talking with you, and appreciate your friendship, man. And as always, appreciate your time. And again, thanks for coming on.
Well, and appreciate the people joining us as well. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks everyone for hopping on here.